How's your hair?
Yeah, do I look fine? Does it look good?
You just look like a normal Tom. Okay.
Okay.
It's recording. Go.
It is. Of course it is. What's up, guys? This is Chef Tad, and today I'm bringing you the very first episode of Chopping with Chef. And for today's recipe, we're actually going to go with something called Sinigang. And what Sinigang is a Filipino sweet and sour kind of soup, more or less. It's made with tamarind. If you're not familiar with tamarind, it is a brown pod that usually has a sweet/sourish kind of flavoring to it. Most people think of it more like a lemony kind of flavor, maybe a datey flavor. So it's going to actually be the base for the soup. That's why we got the tamarind soup base. And it is going to be a very nice, very kind of spicy, sour. It's good, trust me. And one of the reasons why I actually chose this as the first dish for Chopping with Chef is because my girlfriend made it for me, and it was awesome. I was like, man, this is delicious. I'm like, I want to remake this. So I'm kind of putting a little twist on it. It's going to be a little bit less traditional, more kind of modernized. And you should see her face. Her face is actually hilarious right now. She's not too thrilled with some of the things that we talked with me doing it. But that is going to be the overview of the dish. It is something that's really delicious. We're going to go over the ingredients next. All right, so first on the ingredient list, we have pork belly. Like I mentioned, this is a Filipino soup. It is also kind of a soup that uses pork in it as well. So we have some pork belly right here. Really nice looking pork belly you got there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cube this up, and this is gonna be like a lot of flavor that's gonna come into the soup. And the next thing on our meat list is going to be some pork collar or pork neck bones. This is going to provide a depth with the bone marrow there that's going to add a nice kind of umami taste to it. All right, after the meat, next up we have our aromatics, and this is going to help develop kind of the nice flavors that you see there. But the one thing I want to talk about in particular is this chili right here. This is a long green chili pepper, also known as a siling chili pepper or a finger chili. It is a very common pepper in the Philippines. So this is where the spiciness is going to come from. And this is what's going to give it that kind of punch. But as that soup cooks, it's going to also kind of mellow it out a little bit. What you're going to look for whenever you're looking for these are a bright green color on the chili pepper itself. The skin, it needs to be tight. Even though it looks wrinkled right there, it's tight. You want to make sure that's kind of a firm chili as well. And that way you can make sure you get the really nice chili there. And that is the aromatics. All right, guys, next going into the soup, we have taro root, we have okra, we have Chinese eggplant, and long beans. So a little bit about the taro root here. So the taro root, obviously you can tell this is a small taro, but it is very similar to the potato in terms of flavor and in terms of how it is handled. But with that, it has a nut-like flavor when it is cooked. When you're looking for them, you want to look for some firm ones and a smooth kind of skin, even though it's kind of furry. The skin doesn't have really any blemishes to it. Next up, we have the okra. And if you aren't familiar with this is something that's very popular in the South, most often used in gumbos, stews, soups, fried. I mean, you name it, it's in it. It is a pod that is from Africa and most often noted for its ability to thicken anything once it's cut, because it releases a really thick, kind of gooey, viscous substance. Now, when you're looking for these, you want to look for some that have a nice green color to them, that have a firm skin to them, and that are kind of as much blemish-free as you can get. Next up, we have the Chinese eggplant. What you want to look for is kind of a tight skin on it, kind of firm. You don't want it to be super light. You kind of want them to kind of be heavy for their weight and their size. And these are really good in a variety of uses. We're going to put it in the soup today, but most often you see eggplant parmesan, fried eggplant, things like that. But it goes really well in the soup. It is going to provide a kind of a sweeter flavor than your traditional eggplant. It's going to be a more tender eggplant, so that's why we're going with the Chinese one versus a traditional one, because as you can see, the smaller size, it's going to be a little bit more tender. And then finally, we have the long bean, also known as a yard bean. And these can actually grow to be about a yard, but they're most commonly cultivated whenever it is about 18 inches long. They have the same flavor as a green bean, but not as sweet. When you're looking for them, you want to select the smaller ones that are a little bit more flexible like these, right? Because it means that they're younger, so they're going to provide a better flavor overall. The best way to prepare them is to cut them into 2 inches. They're often stir-fried, or you can throw them in soup like this vegetable soup. That is the next set of veggies. And then for the leafy green component to this dish, most of these are going to be thrown in towards the end of the dish, but we have yu choy, also known as yu choy sum. It is related to bok choy. It's in the same family that's there. It sometimes has purple or yellow flowers. As you can see, we have some yellow flowers in right there. It's got a tangy flavor, very similar to that of spinach, which we also have. And when you're looking for this, you want to look for firm stalks and brightly colored leaves. This is a dark green leafy vegetable. So you can see there's some nice coloration there that we have on that. It's great in soups, stir fries, things to that nature. It goes really well. Kind of, if you can think of how you would use spinach, you could almost use this in tandem. So it is a very nice one. The way that you would prepare it is you kind of go at the base of where the leaf stops and the stem starts, and you just cut there, and then you can just use it as it is whole. If you wanted to cut it, you can. It's totally up to you. Up next, we have bok choy. A lot of people like to call this white celery, but it is not that. It is actually related to Chinese cabbage. Even though it's not the same. It's in the same family, but it's not the same as Chinese cabbage. It does look like a kind of white celery, as I was mentioning there. You want to look for firm stalks that are kind of lighter, more towards the whiter side there. It has a very mild taste. It is often used in stir fries, soups, things of that nature, and it is going to be really nice in this dish. This is going to be one of those things that are kind of added towards the end. And then, like I mentioned before, we got spinach. Spinach is obviously a very dark leafy green. It's just going to help kind of lengthen the dish and add a little bit more mildness and some good flavor to it. So that are all the ingredients that we have in today's dish. So let's start prepping them up, washing all the veggies. All right, so we're going to start prepping some of these leafier greens, and that we're going to prep all the vegetables. But basically what I'm doing is I'm just kind of cutting the stems off because it's really woody. So if you've ever bitten into some spinach and you got something that was really just kind of, it'd be that. That'd be that little guy right there. So we're just going to try to get all this kind of along the same lines in terms of same size there with the spinach, and also our other leafy greens that we have, so that way because they're going to go in at the same time. So that way it's nice and good with them. Alright, so we're doing the bok choy now. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to take this bok choy, we're going to rinse it again, just because bok choy kind of grows in the dirt, so it's going to have a lot of dirt to it. So next up is the taro root, and this is kind of like a potato. Some of the taro roots, the ends are going to be a little bit kind of dead, as you can see there. A little bit kind of dead, kind of not good. So we're just going to kind of trim those up, and then we're going to peel them. So you can just use your favorite vegetable peeler, or you can use a knife, either or. Doesn't really matter, whichever one you prefer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to dice these up. Alright, so next we got the Chinese eggplant, so we're just going to cut the ends off there, and then we're going to kind of try to match the same size that the taro root was. Just again, you want to try to get things that are close to the same size for even cooking times.
So if you're Filipino and you have anxiety that is like me, because he's cutting the eggplant different. Yeah, so I'm right with you. It looks weird, but we're just gonna go with his way of making this.
Alright, so for the okra, we're just going to take off the ends of the okra. Simple as that. Alright, so next we're going to do this onion. So for the garlic,
Oh, this guy is totally eating it. You are using your mouth and teeth in there. You're not the star of the show.
Alright, next are the tomatoes. Alright, up next is the chili. Now, one thing with chilies is you usually want to cut those last whenever you're doing prep on things because the capsaicin can actually travel on the knife, travel to other things. And big tip, if you don't have any gloves, make sure that you're only handling the chili with one hand, so that way whenever you end up cutting it and releasing that capsaicin, you don't go rubbing your eyes or anything, because that's going to make for a bad day.
So, in traditional Filipino sinigang, you just put that whole entire chili in there. Yeah, so for you guys are watching this, yes, it is weird for him to cut it, right? Yeah.
Alright, so we're going to start cooking this, and just like every good thing, it takes a little bit of time. But we're going to start off by cooking the meats first to try and get some nice, good flavoring in the bottom there with the meat. We're going to let this oil come up to temp a little bit, then we're going to throw the pork belly in, we're going to let that cook, pull that out, then we're going to throw the neck bones in, let that cook, pull that out, and then we're going to throw the aromatics in, and then after all that's nice and cooked, we're going to throw the meat back in the pot, and then we're going to cover it with water, add our tamarind soup mix, and then we're going to throw in the rest of the veg and let that cook. And then once that's nice and done and close towards the end, what we're going to do is we're going to put our leafy vegetables in there, so that way they can all come up to temp and they can actually cook right, kind of like right before we're getting ready to serve it. So we're going to start off with the pork belly. We're going to drop it in there. Alright everybody, so it's been a little bit. We have all the veg in there except for the bok choy, the spinach, and the yu chow. And so what I did was, after it simmered for a little bit, I went ahead and took all the pork collar out, and I went ahead and took all the meat off the pork collars. I threw the meat back in. I didn't show you that. You don't really have to see me take meat off a bone, I think. But let's take a gander at what we got here. Oh yeah, so there it is in all of its glory. Give it a good stir there. As you can see, all the veggies have cooked. Everything's nice and looks soupy, right? Put all that in there. Do a quick little taste test to see how it tastes right now. Being super hot. Oh yeah. For sure. You're getting a really good pull of the tamarind. There's a little bit of heat there from the chili that we threw in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw bok choy in there. We're going to do just a couple handfuls at a time. Again, this is the bok choy that we put in, that we cut earlier, and I went ahead and rinsed it again because it has a tendency to kind of have some dirt on it. Alright guys, so it's been a bit of time. The bok choy is cooking nice and good. We're going to go ahead and throw in the rest of the leafy greens. We're going to go ahead and throw those in there. Alright guys, so here is the finished product. As you can see, you got it all nice and good, all the veggies, all the meat, all that fun stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of Chopping with Chef. I look forward towards more episodes, more fun things. If you have any ideas or suggestions, feel free to leave it down below. Also, check out the description for this actual recipe. I'll be posting it there, so that way you all can try to make it yourselves if you want to. Other than that, I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks.